I'm Gab. He's Don Hutchison.
Hey.
How about that? Hutch is here. Jules taking a few days off. This is our Cup Final edition show. Basically, we got the French Cup Final, the German Cup Final. But shall we start with the oldest cup competition of them all? The FA Cup, Wembley, Manchester Derby.
Yeah.
Manchester United strolling out. No, maybe not strolling.
Well, they sort of did. They sort of did, didn't they? I didn't see it
Pep
coming.
didn't see it that way.
Well, possession.
Pep didn't see it as a stroll for Manchester United. So actually, let's start with that, because I wasn't going to start with that, but let's start with that.
Yeah.
Pep afterwards said they controlled the game. They had more chances, better chances. Did he watch a different game than you did?
No, I understand his perception, because when you're watching Man City in the first half especially, they dominated the ball, they dominated territory, but they didn't really go anywhere. You know, I was watching the game with a friend of mine. It was always like the minutes and the seconds were ticking by, and it was like, nothing's happening. Nothing's happening for City. They were too sort of passive in their play. They were too predictable. And Man United, I thought, looked very good in their shape. And that's why I thought towards the end of the game, City sort of ran out of ideas. Yeah, they had to push. They had to, because there was jeopardy on the game the last 15, 20 minutes for an hour. Well, definitely the first 45, I thought, Man, you did have a stroll on.
In the end, United's goals, the first one, were the result of defensive errors.
Communication.
And obviously that just, when something like that happens, it allows United to play on the counter even more. I have no issue with Ten Hag opting to play that way.
No.
Opting to play to his strengths. We saw the setup again with Bruno Fernandes centrally and the two wingers wide, and saying, we're going to go old school and
come and beat us.
And I wonder if also, sometimes managers say things to put the narrative in a different direction. The two substitutions Pep made at halftime, did you see that as kind of, when it was only 1-0, right? So I'm like, if you're playing if your first half was so good and we were in control and blah, 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 you wouldn't make those two substitutions, would you?
I've read reports this weekend that he's trying to have a mini rebuild, and it feels like that way to me. I mean, you're judging a team who have just won the Premier League and won at 4 on the spin, so it's very harsh when you try and judge the overall picture. But at the same time, I'm watching a team that I think needs freshen up. It needs different ideas. When Doku comes on the pitch, he's lively, he's energetic, he's forward, he's dynamic. He takes players on, he plays at risk. When other players sometimes play, they play for possession. When Grealish plays, he plays for possession, and he tries to. I mean, I was talking to Jacob Murphy not long ago. I interviewed him on a radio station. I said, "What's the difference when you're setting up and your analysis between Grealish and Doku?" He said, "Interesting." He said, "When Man City line up with Jack Grealish, all their sort of thought process is to try and shift all our midfield players over to one side. Then Grealish will knock it off, and then they'll hit you on the other side and get the overload that way. Doku's a lot more direct." So now I'm watching that and I'm thinking that's quite interesting, because when Grealish plays, it's not the Grealish thing, it's just sometimes Man City are a little bit safe, which I like to see. Sometimes teams risk giving the ball away.
You're talking rebuild after a season in which
I know
Premier
it's
League title. They lost to Real Madrid.
But I think Pep said
penalties
it. But Pep said it. I think Pep realises he needs a mini rebuild, or not. Well, it might not be a rebuild in terms of personnel. It might just be a shift in ideas.
Here's the thing, and then I want to move on to United, because I think we have to give some credit there. Yeah. Pep's contract expires in April 2025. We've said this before, right? He says, Pep's going to leave when Pep wants to leave. Yeah. Whether it's 2020, contracts don't really matter. I mean, maybe you'll stick around for 2030. Yeah. If you're going to have a rebuild, though, if I'm Man City, I want Pep to commit, because I'm not going to go and chuck resources around this summer if then next summer you're like, I'm a bit knackered, I'm leaving, right?
Bit of both, because you can't trust in what Pep's going to do and what he's going to leave behind.
So if you leave it behind for a different manager who's different, I don't know. It's an interesting dynamic. We're going to get into it more, but we have to talk about Ten Hag, because he was crowing, beaming at the end.
Good on him.
He deserved this.
100%, Gab. The guy was under so much stress leading up to the game, the days before, all the media reporting that he's lost his job, he's going to get sacked.
It wasn't all the media. It was just the Guardian.
Okay.
Nobody else stood it up.
No,
just to be clear on this.
All right, but every pundit and everyone asked him about his job straight after the game.
Of course, so that's the story.
Yeah. So the stress that he's under to try and bat that off and say, listen, I've got a cup final to play. So the fact that he's then gone and won it, I mean, you have to give him his dues and let him enjoy the moment, because, as you said, it was a great win. I didn't see it coming. I thought City might have won the game 2 or 3 and be comfortable.
I think it speaks to something that's been going on all year, is that even when United were dire, and there were many situations where they were, and obviously there's the injuries and whatnot.
And we shouldn't forget that.
The players stuck with him. The players showed pride. I think the players, this group of players, almost all of them, had a very clear sense of the moment of what it means to play for Manchester United. Whatever their thoughts on Ten Hag, they said, we're going to war with you. We're not going to, down tools, as you like to say in this country. All right, let's take it back to the game. And look, I've learned through the years, and maybe you have too.
Well, you're starting to learn, Gab. What are you learning?
I little by little, I know that managers say things often for a fact in public after games, and I certainly know, you can confirm this if it's true. I know it happens at the amateur level where I played, but also
just called me an amateur.
Level.
Have you just
no, but
I'm joking.
After games, you've had managers come in and say things to you in the dressing room for effect because they want a reaction, and then maybe you dwell on it, and once you dwell on it, like, he was talking nonsense, but I see why he said it, right? Yeah. Pep's assessment, I think, I don't want to put words into his mouth, but he said something to the effect that United were not the better team.
In his eyes.
Well, obviously he's talking. He's not going to say. He's not saying, I will now speak through the eyes of Don Hutchison.
Well, no, this is what the whole conversation is. Exactly. He's only saying it through his eyes.
And I can see how, if the opposition score through an individual mistake, and then through, a brilliant moment of intuition from Bruno Fernandes. And then he sits there and he tots up his chances between Haaland hitting the woodwork, a couple of Foden chances. The Alvarez one, I'm not an Alvarez guy, but dude, you got to do better better from there. I guess he mishits it ultimately. I don't know, body shape, weight, whatever was wrong. But that's just pep talk. Like most neutrals who watch it, and despite the color of your top,
but you're not going to turn around if you're Pep and go, oh, by the way, we could have been 3-0 down, Man United scored a goal that was just offside. You're gonna lament the chances that you've missed because you're only going to see the team and the lens through your eyes. You're going to go, oh, we could have scored 6, we could have scored 4 or 5,
I think that there's a difference between,
because that's why you have a goalkeeper in goal, that's why you have defenders to defend. You've got to be at special times be able to do your job.
So we don't need to read too much into it.
Listen, I think you watched the game back up, and I think there's been loads of games over the years where if Man City could have won 9-0, they could have won 9-0, or Liverpool or whoever, and you go, that was an absolute battering. They just couldn't finish. Liverpool example, loads of times this season against Man United especially, couldn't finish. So then you go, well, that was poor finishing. But there's other games where you go, actually, it was pretty tight in terms of the chances. I didn't see that being one-way traffic. I don't think City could have scored 4 or 5. In Pep's eyes, because that's the lens he's seeing through. But United were quite comfortable. I thought their game plan was perfect.
Yeah, the game plan worked. Whenever you have this, whenever you have one team scoring early and looking to play in transition, and the other team has more of the ball and they take more shots, and if they have really good players like City do,
they can open you up every now and again.
They can open you up, and City could have scored 4 or 5, but they didn't. And I don't think that should take anything away from United, because the reality is, if you go through this 1-2-11, even Lisandro and Varane, they've played together how many times this season?
Not many.
They're just back from injury. It takes time. So I think Ten Hag took the right approach. I think he would have been absolutely mullered if, say, early on there was the Haaland incident. If Haaland stays on his feet and scores and stuff, they go a goal down. And United have to come at them, and people would then go and question Ten Hag's game plan, right?
Yeah.
He executed it well.
See, what I took away from that game, Gab, is finally, some of the Man United players, and I'll include Bruno Fernandes, who's had a really good season, but over the years, in my opinion, he's been a player that's played for himself a lot. Not this season, he's been a lot better. Instead of playing for the team, Garnacho's a really raw young player who has played 1 million games this season, so I'll excuse him. But now they're finally learning, the Man United players, whether it's too late or whether it's a one-off, whatever it may be, they're finally learning how to play for the team and not yourself. It's not about being an individual.
I think you're harsh on Bruno, because you know what?
No, I'm talking over the years. I'm not just talking this season.
Over the years compared to what? When he was
when he's gone missing in games. When he's gone missing in 1 million games. Where was he in the Bournemouth 3-0? Where was he in the... Well, you might not have played the Palace 4-0, I can't remember. But there's loads of games over the years.
He's not going to do it every game, but I just think...
No, I'm not having a pop at him. I'm just saying, I think they've started to twig, some of the Man United players, that it's about the team. And if the team performance... If Erik Ten Hag had set that team up yesterday in exactly the same way, and 3 or 4 individuals just thought, do you know what, I'm just going to do my own thing, they'd have got battered 7. But they
No, of
didn't. They
course.
stuck to the game plan.
Of course. And I think but that goes to what we said. Like, even when they've been bad and when they've been terrible, with one or two notable exceptions, they've done what Ten Hag's asked them to do. And they did it with belief.
Or I think that's true. Or the players have thought, this is the last chance we're going to play for him. We need to make sure we give everything for the manager.
Because we love him so much.
No, who might not be there tomorrow.
Or maybe just a cup final.
Sometimes you can draw things.
One thing I want to take issue with, just like with Bruno and others, is we in the media, we can be really hypocritical about this, right? Because we talk about, putting the team first, but then equally we want our big players to step up, right?
Yeah.
And I think players like Bruno have to walk that fine line.
Yeah.
You can talk about him like, pay attention to the put the team first and whatever.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, that's fine. But then realistically, I've got McTominay here, Amrabat there, Garnacho, who's a child over there, Rashford, who's been cacked most of the season.
But then you have to be disciplined.
I'm going to take the responsibility onto myself.
Yes, but you
because
can
it's
still
my
be disciplined.
backside on the line.
Yes, but you can still be disciplined, not by wandering off here, there, and everywhere.
He doesn't. You look at Bruno's goals and assists over the years and starting to.
See, that's what I'm saying, Gab. Drop your number. It's easy for the fan to look at Bruno Fernandes, and please, I'm not having a go at him. I promise you, I'm not. But he's a great example. Look at Bruno Fernandes' numbers, goals and assists over the years, right? And there's been plenty of them. And some people say he's carried this team for years. When you watch Man United play, he's also vacated that midfield over the years a million times. So they're starting to learn to play the position. You'd never swap Bruno Fernandes for Paul Scholes. But Bruno Fernandes probably gets more goals than Paul Scholes. You probably even wouldn't swap him for Cantona if you want to play as a number 10.
You can also make the point
you've got to be effective for the team.
You could also make the point that it's easier for Paul Scholes if he's got Roy Keane here, Giggs there, Nicky Butt there, looks to the bench and he sees Sir Alex Ferguson.
You're just mentioning names. You're not mentioning position. You can still play the position. If you're a number 8,
yes, but if the people around you are not good,
so if those,
sorry, is it easier for Scholes to play with very talented players around him?
So you just said there, if the players around you are not that good. So then why would you run over there and run over there and run over there and leave them all exposed? You've got to play the position, stand in your position, have the game in front of you. If you break forward and you can create and you can score goals, you can do magic, which you can, amazing. But you've got to learn to play the position. That's what I took away from the game. They did against City and they got the better result.
One of the magical things he did was set up Kobbie Mainoo. And
brilliant. Brilliant assist.
He might have had a bigger season. Ten Hag was quick to go back to this and said, "Oh well, if he hadn't been injured in preseason, he would have played much more early in the season." Blah blah blah. I'm like, okay. The assist was incredible. No look, whatever.
Incredible assist.
He sees him, goes up.
It's not the fact that it's a no look, because that's just like that's the icing on it. It's the weight of the pass that you give to Kobbie Mainoo. That's what's been effective. Because you can do a no-look pass and you can bobble it into Kobbie Mainoo and he puts it over the bar. And people think, well, great assist though, because it was a no-look pass. No, it was the weight that you give Kobbie Mainoo the pass, which allowed him to finish first time. That's been effective.
But doing the weight when you're not looking is that much more difficult.
It is.
He has a general set. Like, I mean,
Gab, it is, but it's unnecessary. It's not. I don't judge that. I don't.
You don't think that the no-look freezes the defenders?
Footballers will tell you it's unnecessary. Because it's all about the delivery. The fact that he's done it and it's come off makes it brilliant. It makes it out of this world. But it's the weight of the pass that you give him. You can do that by still looking at the ball. That's just a little extra, little icing on the cake.
On Mainoo, I say this in the nicest possible way. He's obviously super exciting talent.
Yeah.
I was a little concerned by how over the top, what I think might be over the top, is people suddenly anointing him as if, he were Brian Robson, Frank Rijkaard, and whoever you want to name rolled into one all of a sudden when he's still 18 years old. And I don't have an issue with Southgate taking him to the Euros. But again, people talking, Rice, Mainoo, Bellingham, midfield. I'm like, he's really young.
And he's really good.
He's really good, but he's really young. This whole if you're, we have seen this many times over the years where players come up, they do really well when they're 18, 19, they have all this pressure chucked on top of them. In fact, you can just look to his teammate Marcus Rashford, in fact, for that, right? Remember Rashford at 18, blah, 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 and then he had the dip, and then he came back, and then he had another dip. I just find it interesting because I think many clubs would take a more conservative, slower approach. In fact, the club they played on Sunday with Phil Foden, right? Foden at 18 was really, really good.
Yeah.
He wasn't doing what Kobbie Mainoo was doing because he wasn't playing as much as Kobbie Mainoo was doing.
I was in the school of thought when he was 18, Phil Foden, he should have went on loan. But I got that wrong because of what he learnt under David Silva, Bernardo Silva, and all the Gundogan. So he was better off staying.
He was better off staying and not playing. I mean,
yeah,
we don't know these guys, right?
Yeah.
But when you're in an emergency situation like United are, you maybe don't have the luxury to keep Kobbie Mainoo out the way City had the luxury to keep Foden out and saying, you just be an apprentice. You play the last 20 minutes.
You learn.
I know. I just wonder.
It's difficult.
I just think you have to be very careful with this.
I think you're right, and I go back to when Liverpool put Bacetić in their midfield because they had no midfield and everyone was injured, and all of a sudden everyone went, "Oh, it's the best thing I've ever seen." You're judging the player on a low bar. So you're judging Kobbie Mainoo on a low bar, as in Casemiro, legs have gone. Christian Eriksen, legs have gone. The talent is there without a shadow of a doubt. And him and Declan Rice could be the perfect player for him. Because Kobbie Mainoo's got 1,000,001 strengths. I would say his tiny little weakness is he can't get around the pitch. Now, that doesn't matter if you've got legs around you. Busquets couldn't really get around the pitch enough. Thiago at Liverpool couldn't really get around the pitch enough. It doesn't matter because you're so skillful. As long as the manager and the coach wraps you round or wraps players around you, that's going to do the things that you can't do. And if you have a Declan Rice and a Bellingham and then you've got Kobbie Mainoo, you go, my days, that is some player.
Before people jump all over Don and take him out of context, when you say he can't get around the pitch, you don't mean
box to box.
Yes, you don't mean he's not an athletic freak like Jude Bellingham is or Declan Rice.
I think
he is somebody who's, perhaps
technically brilliant.
But also not a freak athlete the way these other guys are.
No, well, that's why I mentioned
he's got other traits.
That's why I mentioned Thiago at Liverpool. Great football brain. Kobbie Mainoo looks like he's got it.
I would ask about Kyle Walker because it seems like automatically, he only ever gets praise. But do you hold him a little bit responsible for the Mainoo goal?
Yeah.
Especially when you're telling, again, Mainoo not the quickest. Walker super quick.
Yeah. Well, how much...
And experience and everything.
Well, I question where Man City's midfield was for a start, allowing Bruno Fernandes so much time. I mean, Bruno Fernandes, as you said, with a no-look pass for the assist, could have actually put his foot on it and scored it probably himself. So there was no pressure on him. So Kyle Walker was out of position, but there were so many Man City players, which is very, very unlike them, in one passage of play for about 5 of them to not be in the right positions.
Yeah, and I think that's what would have really infuriated Pep. Just to close it out on Pep before we go to Ten Hag, there are stories, I touched upon this before, there are stories out there that, say that City are now worried that he's not going to stick around after 2025. I've said my take many times. There's nothing you can do about this if you're City.
No. He might stay.
You just have to say, Pep, just please, when you decide, give us as much advance warning as possible. That's beyond that, you've earned.
And there's probably a conversation if it's official that he is going to leave. I would imagine the conversation between the board, the sporting directors, and Pep is what players you're going to leave behind for the next season. That's why I talked about it like a mini rebuild. It might not be loads, but they'll make sure they get the players in for Pep this season. And
I'm
to
not
leave them.
Sure that you can do that and be a good steward to the club.
I think you can. I think Klopp showed that he's leaving a very good group of players behind for Arne Slot.
All right. Darwin Nunez says hi. Sorry. So so does Wataru Endo. It's interesting. No, it's interesting you say that. Liverpool's a whole different issue, but there is a narrative out there.
Well, put it this way.
No. Let me just finish this because you brought up your mate Klopp, right?
There is a narrative. My mate was an example of how you can leave a team behind.
There is a narrative out there that may or may not be true. That part of the reason Michael Edwards and Julian Ward left was they didn't feel as empowered to dictate the transfer policy in the final years of Klopp.
Yeah.
The fact that they're coming back, some people say, might also be a suggestion that, hey, maybe we spent a lot of money on guys who aren't that good, who maybe Edwards and Ward wouldn't have signed. So I'm just chucking that out there.
Well, let me throw.
Liverpool's a different conversation.
Let me throw you back one. Did Sir Alex Ferguson leave Man United in good shape when he won the title? No, because he wanted the players in to win the title that season.
Right. First of all.
No, there's no first of all.
In
my opinion, that's a fact.
Okay, I think we wash our mouth out when
Why?
we mention Sir Alex Ferguson. Get Sir Alex Ferguson.
No.
Because he's unique. He's a one-off.
No. You're judging the whole thing. I'm judging you on that. I'm asking you a
Sir Alex
question on that
Ferguson
season.
didn't have a director of football.
I'm asking you the question. He got the players in that season to win the league.
Yes, and then
I don't think Pep would just get players in for the sake of it. 4 or 5 older players in. He got Van Persie in to win the league. I don't think Pep will do that.
No, I'm not
to try and
suggesting
win
that
the
at all,
league.
but
I
what
think
I'm-
he'll leave something behind for the next manager.
of course he will. But the point is, I think Pep might feel a little bit inhibited to go and do something creative or unusual or weird that then turns out to be brilliant, like he's done in the past. The club may not license, may not sanction that if he's not going to be there to see it to see it through.
What do you think? They say no to Pep? They say no because you're leaving next season. We're not going to give you this player that you want. That's not going to happen.
If it's not a player that the club,
But
that,
Pep wouldn't
that the
want
club
them anyway.
rate,
Pep
or
wouldn't,
that
want, Pep wouldn't want them anyway.
Don, there's players who are rated by some managers who work well with some managers and not with others. Right? So I'll give you Manuel Akanji as an example, right? City didn't pay a lot for him.
No.
If Manuel Akanji had cost 60 million and Pep had said, oh, this is going to be my last year, do you think the club would have signed off on it? I don't think so. I think the club would have said, well, wait a minute. We don't like this guy at 60 million. And you're leaving, and we don't want to get stuck with this guy.
By the way, you go through that Man City team now. There was plenty of players in that Man City team that got offered to Premier League clubs at bigger prices, as you said. And Man City's,
which is
some of the players they actually bought really cheap.
Yeah, that's a whole conversation for another time. I just want to turn it back to Ten Hag and his future because it's United, and we talk about United all the time. He said, "Well, if I go, I'll just go win titles elsewhere." I love that answer. I've made fun of Ten Hag because he has said an incredible number of stupid, delusional things this year. Equally, he's under a ton of pressure. He's out there on his own, and again, I go back. I feel like I bring this up all the time, right?
Yeah.
But at the clubs he worked at before, he had a chief executive who spoke. He had a sporting director who were visible and spoke. The pressure was diffused. At Manchester United, like at many English clubs, no, it's all on the coach. It's all on him, right? And so when he talks a lot, he will end up saying some silly things.
Yeah.
And he often did that. He's not paid to be an expert in communication and media with the outside world.
Sometimes
right?
he's been too honest. A lot of the time, Gab, I've listened to him and I think you mentioned delusional. I think that may be a little bit harsh, but I know where you're coming from because he doesn't watch the same game a lot of us do.
That said, that answer was a perfect answer.
Great answer.
And
because I think he knows, and the way he's give that answer, he knows he's probably gone.
So the report is that they're going to have a review,
which means he's going to get the sack.
But here's the thing. So according to the Times, these are the 4 names, and some of these names will come up later. Mm-hmm. The 4 names, and I would like you to rank them for me in desirability. They are Thomas Frank, the jumped-up Dane from Brentford. Mauricio Pochettino, just sacked by Chelsea. Thomas Tuchel, just sacked by Bayern. And Kieran McKenna.
Kieran McKenna, no. 2
promotions in a row.
No.
Okay, so he would be your last choice.
0.
Okay.
Not ready yet. Go and manage your Brighton first.
All right. What about who's your choice between?
Do you know who I would honestly take?
Yeah, it's got to be one of these 3 names.
Well,
otherwise,
yes, I would take Thomas Frank. And the reason why I would take Thomas Frank because the relationship between the Brentford players, staff and fans, the connection is there. And that's exactly what Man United need. And I'd love the next manager to turn around in his press conference. And I think Thomas Frank would have the gumption to say this. I'm not sure Pochettino or Tuchel would. But I think Thomas Frank could more or less stand down the barrel of a camera and turn around to Man United fans all around the world and say, this is going to get worse before it's going to get better. And I'm going to
and the fans would be like, hey, Thomas Frank, you're such a massive name. You've got such a wonderful CV. Yeah, we'll believe you.
Right. And the reason why you believe me, because he will tell you there's so many, he wouldn't say it, but there's so many people in that dressing room that are dead wood and I need to get rid of. And I need to start again. Trust me, it's going to get worse before it gets better. And in the long run, you might see Man United back. If they keep going with these fantasy managers up and down and buying older players and the model doesn't change, they won't change. Thomas Frank will change them.
So Tuchel and Pochettino aren't? No? You would take Thomas Frank?
I like him, but I would take Thomas Frank because of what he stands for and what he can do in the long term, not the short term.
We'll have to agree to disagree on this one. For my money with Thomas Frank, I have no idea.
So who are you taking then?
Not Thomas Frank.
So who are you taking then?
If it has to be one of these 4,
yes.
I would reluctantly take Poch, frankly, out of these 4. Unless Ashworth tells me, don't worry, I can control Tuchel.
Poch has got this amazing credit in the bank in English football,
does,
isn't he? Yeah. What's he ever won?
Oh, because it's about winning things.
But no,
right?
but what if I'd like to see. I'd like to see on paper, on black and white, when you put down on your resume and you go, there you go, there's my CV.
Look, I don't think any of these
Apart
four...
from working with young players.
I don't think any of these four are ideal. I'm not convinced any of these four will be the next manager.
Tuchel's just bombed at Bayern.
Sorry?
Tuchel's just bombed at Bayern. Why
Yeah, no.
Why would Man
I
United
think,
take Tuchel? I just find it amazing you can bomb somewhere and people go, we'll have him. Amazing manager.
because people look at the broader... People look at somebody's broader CV, what they stand for. That would be the argument for Pochettino and for Tuchel, right?
But
Pochettino can come back and
I'd
say...
go Thomas Frank. That's why I'd go Thomas Frank.
Okay, but you understand that Thomas Frank, the reason it would be a tough sell, and I have max respect for Brentford, and I've said this many, many times, right? When you have a manager who... Leaving aside the style of play of Brentford, which is incredibly effective, I don't know if people at Old Trafford would particularly enjoy that style of football.
No, but he wouldn't play that style of play. You adapt.
Because you've seen Thomas Frank play different styles of football.
You would adapt with better players. These guys are not just going to play a certain system at Brentford and then waltz into Man United and go, that's what we've got to do.
Right. But do you have any evidence that Thomas Frank can play different football?
Well, I would imagine so, Gab, because they're intelligent guys. They know the game. They're not just going to rock up and play the same system. And because they're going to be adaptable. If you've got good players like Kobe Mainoo, you're not going to bypass the midfield and go long. You're going to get it into the quality players. You're going to have a style of play. And Brentford do play, by the way. They just mix their game up well.
I just wonder about Frank, if he's a little bit like, the hologram on that Star Trek, the hologram doctor on that Star Trek thing, where he can only exist at Brentford with the structures that are around him and all the smart people who are around him at Brentford. And if you put him somewhere else, he's just a guy with bug eyes. I don't know.
I think you're being incredibly harsh.
Okay, there you go. Don Hutchison wants Thomas Frank.
I do.
Don Hutchison, Liverpool and Everton.
No,
fan.
The best man for the job.
Right, enough FA Cup. How about some quick hits instead?
Let's do it.
Barcelona went away to Sevilla 2-1 with goals from Robert Lewandowski and Fermin Lopez. Don, he's 36 in August, and he has 26 goals this year, which is his lowest total since 2015, his first season at Bayern. Your thoughts? What kind of Lewandowski are we going to see next year?
Hopefully a good version of Lewandowski. I mean, I was looking at the Bayern wingers that
players get better when they get...
Well, no, because I think you've got to judge Lewandowski on, and strikers will tell you the service that they're getting. I mean, Lamal's, 16? Lopez is, 21?
Yamal even, yeah.
Yeah, but when he played with Bayern, he had Perisic, he had Koeman, he had Ribéry.
Yeah, he's not going to have those guys again. So in the here and now for Barcelona...
The point is he needs service. You can only get goals as a striker if you get service. Right. Give him more service, he'll score goals. Gab, we saw some pretty emotional season between the players and Xavi and what will be his final game. Has the club got this right?
In getting rid of Xavi?
Yeah.
No, they haven't. They're certainly not in the... Actually, let me address this. It may have been right to get rid of him. I personally don't think it was. And some basic facts, they finished with 85 points, which is 3 fewer than they had last season. And this season was much more of a tumultuous season. And last season they won the league and everybody loved them, right?
Yeah.
That total, by the way, I think is it's the third highest total in a non-Messi Barcelona in like 50 years, something stupid like that. And also, you don't do it the way they did it. You don't do it. Xavi says, "I'm going to go," then you're going to good run. No, Xavi, please stay. Then he says, "Okay, you've convinced me. I'm going to stay."
Yeah.
And then he says before the Almeria game what everybody knows, which is next season's going to be difficult, not because Laporta's a weirdo or a bad guy, but because they got the financial restrictions and the levers and all this nonsense. And then all of a sudden, oh, we don't like him anymore. Let's not talk to him. Lewandowski gets the hump, Vitor Roque gets the hump, and then suddenly Hansi Flick materializes. That's not how you do things. You have more respect. And the fact that every single player... just about, not everybody, came up and hugged him, was very emotional about it. Marc-Andre ter Stegen, I think he referenced Xavi 4 times in his 3-minute flash interview.
Yeah.
It shows you how the players feel about it. This is not right. It's not right the way he's been treated. He's a big boy. He'll get over it. But this could really come back.
It's gone back and forth, though, isn't it? He was gone at one point, said he was going to leave.
Yeah, but I mean, you don't do it. You don't do things this way. I know Laporta's been ill and whatever, but come on, man. Granit Xhaka scores the only goal as Bayer Leverkusen beat Kaiserslautern to win the German Cup, despite going down to 10 men in the first half. Thank you, Kusunu. Don, 1 defeat all season, the only stumble against your pals at Atalanta in the European League final.
Gasperini ball. Done him, didn't they? Battered them. I mean, did
I
you see?
enjoyed this.
I am, because I love Gasperini. Granit Xhaka's goal, by the way. I mean, what a strike. I mean, he's got this sort of long-distance strike in the locker. So they're double invincibles. Leverkusen, incredible story still.
Yes, the winning streak now stands at 1. But
you know what I mean.
But I'll say the Granit Xhaka, I'll hold my hand up when I was wrong. When they were going to spend all that money, I think it was 25 million euros, something like that, on Xhaka, who had a year left from the Arsenal. He was over the age of 30.
Yeah.
And they're going to give him a 5-year deal. I thought, oh my God, this is really going to backfire. This is such a stupid idea. What is Xabi Alonso thinking? Tell you what, I was completely wrong.
Yeah.
Xabi was completely right. Without Granit Xhaka, they do not achieve what they achieved this year. I think arguably more important to this team than Wirtz, than anybody else.
I heard him talking, Xabi Alonso, about players and their speed, and he went, no, he went, I want football brains. I want players that are high level IQ, can play the positions well.
And he's such a phenomenal leader as well.
Amazing.
Well done.
Speaking of Atalanta, Gab, they beat Torino 3-0 and still have a game in hand. They could finish third. What a job by the Gasp.
Third in Serie A? Are you kidding me? That would be something like that. The game in hand is against Fiorentina.
I'm doing that game. I'm commentating on that game next Sunday.
No, it's not next.
Is it Sunday? Sunday, Monday? Sunday.
Whatever. It's after the Champions League final when you're not supposed to play football anymore, but for very complicated reasons, owing to the fact that this game was postponed due to the tragic and sudden death of Joe Barone from Fiorentina, and the fact that both these teams reached European finals and Atalanta reached the Coppa Italia final. It's the only time that they could go out there and play it. How cool would it be if Fiorentina win the conference and they have like a massive love. It's a totally irrelevant game at this stage.
Yeah.
So go for it. Don, we not done. We got more quick hits.
Yeah, let's do it.
Real Madrid end the season with a scoreless draw against Betis, but nobody cares. The interesting part was Carlo Ancelotti playing what we think will be his starting 11 in the Champions League final. That means Thibaut Courtois ahead of Andre Lunin. Also Nacho ahead of Eder Militao. Right choices, Don?
Oh, no. Militao I can understand. Off the back of an ACL and only played a couple of games, but harsh on Lunin, no? Got you all that way to a final, played particularly well, had a great season, then Courtois, your mate, just rocks back in and straight back in the team. Is that good? Not in my opinion. Yeah, it's Courtois that's been injured for about 9 years.
He's Courtois.
So, it doesn't matter. If you're not fully fit...
I think he's been back now, like a month? I think he's played a bunch of games. I wouldn't
play him.
I think he's shown that he can play more so than Militao, who I think still has some niggles. Anyway, by the way, I didn't mention this because we talked about Kroos endlessly, but I was moved again seeing him. I don't know if that was sweat or tears in his face.
Tears.
Certainly tears with his kids.
I think he said, these kids broke me. I think he said I was going to try and be brave and try and be strong, then his kids were crying. And
unbelievable.
Then they broke. By the way, what a player, Gab.
Incredible.
What a player. PSG win 2-1 against Lyon as Donnarumma makes a huge save to preserve the win in the French Cup, Gab. How would you assess Enrique's first season?
So, by the way, to be clear, Paris Saint-Germain had more chances, and I think Lyon were maybe a little fortunate to keep it so close. All told, look, he made his mark. He's going to be Mr. Discipline. He's made some big calls. He's certainly not lacking for personality, having to navigate the whole Mbappe exit. Not easy. I think he has This
could be the making of PSG, you know. Not so much Mbappe going, but no Messi, no Neymar anymore.
He has a very clear picture
building a team
of what's ahead, yeah. So I think his first season was almost a diagnostic, and he still won the double and whatnot. But going forward, I think he's got a clear idea. The question is, it is Luis Enrique, so he's a little bit flighty, let's say, or all over the shop. So he's got to be focused, and he's got to get the backing from the top. And sticking with Luis Enrique, Don, he was asked to name his Paris Saint-Germain Player of the Year. So I'm going to assume he chose the guy who scored 44 goals, notched 10 assists in 48 games.
It's definitely going to be Mbappe, yeah? It's definitely going to be Mbappe. Vitinha.
Really?
Apparently.
You'd almost think he's sending a message.
It's not Is it a message? Did they get on? Was it a message? Because he come out with that bizarre one, didn't he, when he didn't play him and he took him off. He said, I'm going to have to get used to life for that, Kylian Mbappe. I mean, he's had some season.
I think
wouldn't you just give it to Mbappe, knowing that he's going?
Well, first of all, as a coach, if I were coaching Paris and somebody asked me the question, I would say, "Hey, I'm not voting because it's a team and there's no I in team." It's something stupid like that.
I'd just say, Kylian. There you go.
It's obviously Kylian's a better player, more important, but I also understand what he wants to do with pump up Vitinha, who over the last 3-4 months has been absolutely exceptional. Mm-hmm. And look, what do you care about Mbappe's ego. He's gone.
Yeah.
Vitinha will still be there, so pump him up if you can.
Juve beat Monza 2-0. Chiesa and Fagioli shine. Gab, how big of a role will these two play?
I think they'll play a really big role. Fagioli, I mean, I saw him. He looked really sharp. He looked determined. He's tremendous passing, delivering assists, hitting the woodwork. He's been included in the Italy squad for year 2024. He's obviously well rested. We believe in second chances. You did a crime. You did the time.
Yeah.
Move on. And I think he's somebody that Juve can really build around.
Talk to me about Chiesa quickly, because I love him. But is he carrying a little bit of something from the injuries that he's had? Because
the problem with him, I mean,
he's so good.
When he's good, he's unplayable.
That's
right?
what I mean.
The problem is he's got these long injuries in between. He has these stints where he comes off. I think if you need to raise money, if there's a market for Chiesa as a big Euros, I think Juve will be very tempted. I'm not saying they'll definitely do it.
I wouldn't if you find a new position for him, as in like, right, now you just play as a number 10. Stop doing work out wide. Can't do you doing 10K, 12K, 14K every single game. Go and be free.
Just make him a second striker behind Vlahovic.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I mean, when you talk about assets that they can move on for money, I go more Chiesa than Vlahovic for me personally, because I think Vlahovic still has a lot to give.
Yeah.
Bayern will reportedly confirm Vincent Kompany's appointment imminently. Don, do you like this kind of outside-the-box thinking? And I'll say this, given how you gushed over Thomas Frank before, presumably you'll tell me that you love Kompany too.
No, the complete opposite.
Oh, really?
Because he didn't have ability to change. Why would you try and play the same system, playing out from the back?
Sorry, when did Frank change?
Huh? No, Thomas Frank changes in game. He can go long, he can play wide, he can go into midfield.
I see.
All Burnley do with Vincent Kompany is to give it to the goalkeeper, who makes a million mistakes, but keep on doing that, by the way, because it's good. No. Give it to the centre-halves who make a million mistakes. Keep doing that because it's good. No. Mess around at the back. Concede loads of... Can you imagine Uli Hoeneß and Rummenigge watching Bayern trying to play 50 passes before they get anywhere near their 12, 18-yard box? Anywhere near the halfway line.
We've seen this before. But
we've seen it in a different guise. I think it's...
You're not a fan of Kompany then, as a coach.
No, because
as a person, I'm sure you are. We all are. But.
Fine, but you've got to have the ability to adapt in a game. You can't just keep making and playing the same mistakes every single game, going, yeah, that's because Pep plays that way. Right. But you haven't got the players to do it, so adapt. You didn't stay in the Premier League because you didn't adapt.
We talked at length about this, so I'm not going to bore you with my view.
Go for it. No, do it.
Well, no, I think this is obviously a function of all the 99 million people who said no to Bayern, and the fact that Kompany interviews really well, and the fact that they say, hey, if you were to go back 12 months and we're hiring Kompany because we love the football he played with Burnley when they walked it in the championship, and it's a bold step, and we know he's young, but we believe in youth, blah, 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 people would have been okay with this. Then they see him in the Premier League, and they're like, oh, this is terrible. I don't think your views, I don't think Kompany's that different a person. If anything, he's a better manager, presumably because he's learned things. So you want to go out on a limb? Think outside the box for a year? Go for it.
Well, they might not get outside the box. That's my point. They might keep playing inside the box. Gab, goals from Bonmati and Alexia Putellas give Barcelona a 2-0 win over Lyon in the Women's Champions League final. Their third win in 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, Barcelona obviously an absolute powerhouse in this competition. Obviously, everybody happy for Putellas. She came on. She scored an injury time.
Lovely goal.
Yeah, she can play a little, huh?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I mean, you'd agree with me that Barcelona had the bulk of the opportunities in this. There was that one Lyon chance early, which might have changed the game, as they say, but there's just too much quality top to bottom. We get Caroline Graham-Hampson.
When I watch the Barcelona women's team, it might sound a bit mad, but bear with me. But when I watch this Barcelona women's team, it reminds me of the Pep's Barcelona team in terms of more or less the exact same philosophy. They're patient. They've got intelligent footballers that can handle the ball. I don't look at them and think, well, they've got speed merchants everywhere. They're very, very intelligent, very technical.
But they're extremely technical, but also they have extreme stamina. They outrun and outwork the opposition as well, right? So it's that combination, and that is what we saw in the early Pep teams. Chelsea have reportedly put together a 4-man shortlist to replace Mauricio Pochettino. Don, this exercise before a little bit with United, but their shortlist is Roberto De Zerbi,
maybe
Enzo Maresca, so 2 nice Italian guys, and then Kieran McKenna and Thomas Frank, who weirdly are also a Manchester United shortlist. Will you please rank them Come on. Give me your...
Kieran McKenna's too early.
So he's number 4.
Yes, I need to see him at Brighton. Right. I need to see him somewhere else.
We'll do a reverse count up, okay? Who's your third choice out of these?
Third choice, De Zerbi.
Okay.
But I love him. Massive fan of him. But another one like Vincent Kompany this season. Do you see the City game when they were messing around trying to play 50 passes and City just didn't even press them?
Well, also Chelsea's track record with people from Brighton is what it is.
That might not be great.
All right. Come on, drumroll. Your second choice.
Maresca.
Really? Because your first choice is obviously Thomas Frank.
If I'm saying Thomas Frank for Man United, I can't then say second choice for Chelsea, can
Even though Chelsea are a different club.
It doesn't really matter. I'd rank them 50-50. I think Maresca's going to do a great job, and I think he can progress this young team on. But I'm a big Thomas Frank fan. I think he needs to go to the next level, and I think he's capable of going to the next level. I think he's got it in the locker.
I'm not really buying this list. I don't believe that Zerbi's on there. I don't believe if Zerbi does even a smidgen of homework, he'll know this is not the right club for me right now. Maresca, I think, will be leaving Leicester. And
that seems a good fit.
He's got the pedigree. That'll be interesting to watch.
My only problem with a coach that really wants to play the possession-based game, I don't think Chelsea have got particular players to do that. I think they're more of an exciting front-footed team, a little bit chaos. I think that's when they're at their best. If you slow Chelsea players down and ask them to get on the ball and be calm and play,
I agree with you. He's going to have to not play that way at Chelsea because seriously, other than who's Chelsea's second best?
So now you're saying a manager can adapt to different clubs.
Yes, he can.
You didn't say that when I said Thomas Frank at Man United, did you?
Well, we've seen him do it.
Right.
We've seen.
See?
Whatever. He's got. Who's Chelsea's second best passer after Cole Palmer?
I would imagine Enzo Fernandez.
Yeah. Third best? You're kind of running in trouble there.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's what I'm saying. So do you want them to be a ball-playing team? No. Yeah. Keep them chaotic. It suits them. Marto Arnautovic scores twice as Serie A champions Inter beat Verona 2-2. And in the new owners, Oaktree met with the club's officials. Gab, do you have any better sense of what their plans are going forward?
Yeah, so we've touched upon this before, but basically Oaktree ended up with the club because they loaned the previous owners, Suning, a large amount of money that they were unable to repay. So because Suning had put the club as collateral, they're now in charge. Essentially, Oaktree have two options. They can just say, ooh, we want our $400 million back, so let's just asset strip. Let's just sell everything that's not nailed down, right? Yeah. We get money for Barella here. We get money for Lautaro Martinez, obviously. And let's just get our money out, and then, we'll sell the club for scrap. I don't think they're going to do that. I think what they're going to do is they're going to try to run the club better. It's a club that still makes, the losses are way down, but they're still they're still making substantial losses. They're going to have to put more money in the short term. But I think their goal is to do what Elliott did with Milan, run the club better, run it more efficiently. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be expensive. And very, very critical is that they sort out new deals for Barella and for Lautaro Martinez, especially. Still ways apart on the money with Lautaro. So they better get to work right away. Leo Bonucci has announced his retirement from football. Of course, Donny left Juventus, spent half a season at Union Berlin, didn't work out, went to Fenerbahce. Donny was time, but in his prime, what a player.
What a player, what a partnership, him and Chiellini. I mean, you can look back at the great partnerships around European football in that era, and these two, and especially Bonucci, I think they rank very, very high. A leader. I think he had a little dip towards the end of his career, but all pros sort of have it. But in terms of the overall picture, I think you would agree, some player.
Yeah, and also a tremendous ball-playing centre half, and in some ways a little bit ahead of his time.
Yeah. Nice touch from Lionel Messi congratulating Barcelona's women's team on their Champions League title, Gab.
Yeah, and look, people are going to be sitting and say, oh, it's not Lionel Messi. He's not actually on the Instagram account. It's a social media team. Like, whatever. But he's still sending out the message that Barcelona is still a huge part of
amazing,
his
isn't
life.
it? You can do a nice little gesture and then people criticise
exactly.
it. Go,
So, well done, Leo, for recognizing this. I think he's still, that bond's not going to go away. I wouldn't be surprised if one day in some capacity he goes back and to kind of recognize and elevate this incredible Barcelona women's team that have won 3 of the last 4 win the Champions League titles? I think it's a big deal. Milan and Salernitana battle to a 3-3 draw, but Don, it's really all about Olivier Giroud and Stefano Pioli saying farewell. Who are you going to miss more?
Did you see Pioli's speech last night? Quite moving.
I did.
It was quite moving. I'm a Pioli fan. I think the job that he's done has been pretty good. I've always looked at into having the best squad over the last 4 or 5 years. I think Pioli's done really well. But Giroud is going to be missed. I think he's a very, very underrated striker. I can remember going back to the World Cup a few years ago, Gab, and I think France played, I think it was Australia, and they played Mbappe, Dembele, and Giroud was on the bench, and he didn't get a look in, and Griezmann was the other one, and I think they drew 0-0, or they didn't play particularly well, and they never really got a chance, and the three of them on paper, you'd go, my God, that's like a phenomenal three. They just keep running into each other's spaces, all over the shop. They put Giroud in the second game, they went on and won the World Cup, because he's effective at what he does. Never lets you down, scores great goals, great for, as a midfield player myself, he's your ideal target man. Gets hold of the ball, brings everyone into the game.
Zirkzee, Sesko, Jonathan David, these are the names that are out there. I don't think it's going to be Jonathan David, but we'll see.
We'll see. Lucas Paquetá has been charged by the FA for spot fixing. If found guilty, is his career over?
I mean, depends what they found him guilty of, but certainly based on precedent.
Have we seen this before? I don't think we have. Maybe it's once, have we? In terms of someone spot
There's a
fixing
guy.
for...
There was a guy who named Keenan Isaac, who I'd never heard of, who played for something called Stratford Town. So I'm assuming, I don't know which Stratford it is, because in this country, like, because you're not very imaginative with names.
You're
like,
blaming me?
Well, you know how like there's a Greenwich in London, and there's like a Greenwich up north somewhere, and there's a Richmond in London, there's a Richmond up north, and there's
it's
like,
not hard, is it? You just choose the one that you want to go to.
There's like 3 different places named Ashton, whatever.
What did he get? 10 year?
Well, he was spot fixing. He was found completely guilty. He took money from professional gambler. So he was found to have taken money from professional gamblers.
And I read this was on Paquetá Island, apparently.
It's not his real last name. It's just he's from this island, which is a small island. I think it's maybe like 3,000 people. It's right in sort of the internal bay between Rio and Niterói, right by Rio de Janeiro. And it's a tiny, picturesque island. Yeah. And as it appears that there's a bunch of people, and so the reason he's known as Lucas Paquetá is because he's from there, right?
Oh, I see, right, yeah. I didn't know
He was
that.
as if you were
Don
Newcastle.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Or where'd you grow up?
Gateshead.
So if you were Don Gateshead, right?
I like
If you were Brazilian, you'd be Don Gateshead.
Oh, I like
Much cooler than Don Hutchison. Anyway, so they found, they monitor these things, unusual betting patterns.
Yeah,
They found a bunch of people, started in Brazil, in fact, a bunch of people were betting on an island on him getting yellow cards. And then you've probably seen the video of the 4 yellow cards that they're investigating. Yeah. They look unnecessary. What does it mean? I don't know. Were they family members
involved?
But the thing is, I mean, this is different. It's one thing when this is one step away from match fixing. And this other dude got a 10-year ban, and he basically is a semi-professional player.
Why would you get involved?
I don't know, but think of the impact here. Think of first of all. Think if West Ham had moved him to City last summer. Yeah. Think of Lopetegui now coming into this situation. It's been addressed by the Brazilian national team.
I wonder how they actually prove this then.
Ahead of the Copa America?
Wonder how they actually prove it.
Difficult, I believe it's not a court of law, so they only have to prove it on the balance of probabilities. So if Paquetá doesn't give good answers, he's handed over his phones and. But again, he's facing 2 charges of kind of being slow to hand over information. He denies all this, of course. And he said, no, I wasn't slow to hand over information. I mean, we don't know. But ultimately, this panel is going to decide based on that. I'll probably get some nerd to come up with statistical probability of all these people on Paquetá Island kind of betting on this. It does not look good for him. It does not look good for him, but he just said he denies he's going to prove his innocence, and it would be sad because if it's a shorter ban, but you know what, in a world where you can get a 1-year ban for simply gambling on sports, rather than actually trying to influence the outcome on the pitch, which is what the accusation is here. Yeah. Even 3-4 years.
I don't know how you get involved in it.
No. Southampton are back in the Premier League. They beat Leeds United 1-0 in the Championship playoff final. Don, your thoughts? You love the championship playoff final.
I do. I'm a little bit gutted that Leeds didn't come up though. Just a bigger club, great story, good young players.
Big Daniel Farke fan, right?
It was a good game. I mean,
Farke, Frank, both sort of.
Oh, you see, I wonder.
Both start with F. Both short names.
You see where my tendencies are
both
going.
Northern Europeans.
Do you know what, Gab? Right, I've played in 3 playoff finals, and they are.
You have a brilliant record in them.
Disgusting to play in. They are horrible. Right, I've played in 3. I've won 2. Won 1, lost 2. And they are horrible because hardly anything about the game is enjoyable apart from the win. There's always a game plan. Of course there is, from a coach, and the players want to sort of, I hate the word, I'm going to say it, execute. I hate that word, but they're going to execute the game plan and listen to the manager's instructions. But all of it just goes out the window because of the stress. And 5 minutes in, you do not want to be the man that makes the mistake. You don't want to be the person that tries that risky pass and you give the ball away.
Were Leeds too conservative in this game?
I think they were. I think it took them a long time to get going. I was watching the game, and again, it was like the minutes were ticking by, and it's like, come on, man, you're going to leave it. And I know the dynamic of this game. I've watched a million games. I've played them. What you're going to do is you're going to wait to 10 minutes to go. Then you're going to throw centre halves up, and you're going to go route 1, and you're going to get crosses in the box. And you're going to have chances. It's like that's what you want to do from minute 1 and win the game. But I understand that the pressure and the jeopardy makes it a terrible game to play in.
From a coaching and messaging perspective, what I find so interesting about this is if you have a team like Leeds, who, correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't follow the championship at all, but my understanding, and please correct me too, producer Freddie, who's eavesdropping on us.
I've seen them loads. I've seen them batter Chelsea.
Okay. No, but what I'm saying is they were close to automatic promotion. They should have had automatic promotion, right? Yeah. So when you miss out on that, you kind of take some of that negativity with you into the playoffs, more 100%. So than a team that maybe finishes 5th or 6th and we're 20 points off and never had a chance.
100%.
So that's where, as a manager, you have to maybe turn it into a positive. You tell your players, guys, we were close to automatic promotion.
Yeah.
We're a lot better than these other clowns.
Yeah.
Or do you know what I'm saying? Is you have to get buy-in from the players. And that, I think, is a real messaging skill.
It is, but I think at the same time, if you're a manager and you've missed out, your biggest job is not managing down as in the players, it's managing up. And you're saying to the board, please don't get rid of any of these. Because there's going to be so many Premier League clubs that are going to want to buy a half a dozen of these Leeds players. If you sell them, and we only got in the playoffs, you sell them, we might finish mid-table. And then all of a sudden you're looking at a Leeds cycle again. It might take you another 20 years to get back up.
Reports out there that Leeds need to pay, will need to shed a number of players just to meet some of the profit sustainability
requirements. The standout player, and I've seen him play against Chelsea, I believe.
Willie, say Willie.
I'm going to say Archie Gray. Archie Gray ran the show. Pretty sure Enzo Fernandez and Caicedo played in the game, and he ran the show. He is so good for a teenager. He will be, and he won't want to go. Massive Leeds mini icon, even though he's a teenager. They'll be desperately sad if he has to leave. But they have got some players like Somerville who they can try and sell on. But the trouble is, as I said, if you sell them on, then how do you get to playoffs next season? How do you win the championship next season? Howard Kendall told me one thing when I was in the championship with him at Sheffield United. Buy championship players, you'll stay in the championship. You need to buy Premier League players if you're going to try and get up. That's going to be the difficulty. Roma lose to Empoli on the final day of the Serie A season, Gab, finishing on 63 points, which was exactly where they finished last season under Jose. Gab, do you still think it was the right choice to replace him for De Rossi?
It was the right choice because Jose Mourinho wouldn't have signed a contract extension, and they couldn't afford to keep Jose Mourinho on the salary he was on. So then you're moving the transition 6 months forward. And it showed that with De Rossi, just purely from that aspect, right? Mm-hmm. Once it was obvious that Jose Mourinho wasn't going to sign his contract, you might as well get started on the next phase.
And he had an immediate impact, didn't he?
He had an immediate impact. It's not like the team fell apart. He completely overhauled the way they played, I think, in terms of the way he presented himself in public. I mean, they did much better than under Mourinho. He avoided the controversy. People like him. Yeah. You've got now a coach who's not costing you a lot of money, who's obviously a hometown hero, and you're ready to go. And he already has those 6 months under his belt. Let's see what happens with preseason. Had they kept Mourinho, Maybe they could have been in the Champions League. Maybe they wouldn't. But even if they gone to the Champions League, they would still be going into next season without Mourinho, with needing a new manager you're throwing into the deep end. And by the way, it's by no means guaranteed that Mourinho would have gotten them into the Champions League. With a different draw, with a better draw, maybe they wouldn't have played Bayer Leverkusen. Yeah. You know, just imagine it when the other way around. Man, imagine they played Marseille in the semifinal. Yeah. Atalanta beat Bayer Leverkusen. Atalanta beat Bayer Leverkusen and end the streak. And then in the final, Roma play Atalanta and win. There's a lot of, alternate sliding door situations. But I think what's obvious, and this along, the decision to part ways with Mourinho was because he was not sustainable financially.
Turkey, I've read.
Gobble, gobble. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I don't want him to go to Saudi Arabia. I'm not ready for you. I think a national team, I've said this all along, is a good solution for him. Celtic beat Rangers to win the Scottish Cup final. It's a double for Brendan Rodgers and friends, and I am directing this question at you because, of course, you're Scottish.
Yeah, and a Rangers fan. So a little bit gutted. Yeah.
You guys kept it close till the end, yeah?
To be honest, in all the games I've watched, and all the Old Firm games, or the majority of the ones I've watched this season, Celtic have been too good. I think the standard of football needs to improve massively in Scotland. When I was watching a lot of the Old Firm games, it was almost like watching, I don't want to be disrespectful and say championship football, but the standard needs to improve a hell of a lot, Gab. I'm watching games and I'm thinking there's not really great control. There's players that give the ball away. It's exciting because if the standard's not great for Celtic, it's not great for Rangers. They make for sort of quite even games. But to propel yourself into European football and Champions League football, and if you are going to try and survive, they need a lot more investment. They need money. They need to buy better players. It's always difficult. But you've got to credit Brendan Rodgers, the job that he's done. He was a manager at the start of the season who was under pressure for his job. So to turn it around and get a double, amazing. So it shows that once and when you're prepared, might be a David Moyes moment. If you go up to Celtic or if you're Rangers and you go up there and you win trophies, you can put them in the bank and you can put them on your CV and you go, yeah, I won a lot of trophies. That's definitely what Brendan's done.
A David Moyes moment. Do you see David Moyes?
No, Scotland? Wherever he goes next, he's if he does go to Scotland, if he goes to Celtic,
where else is he going to go? He's a Celtic guy.
Okay, if he goes to Celtic, if Brendan gets enticed like he did for Leicester, he might get enticed down to the Premier League again. Might happen, might not. He might be a little bit more loyal this time and stay. David Moyes has got a chance to put some trophies in the cabinet along with the conference.
Well, after Thomas Frank goes to Manchester United,
or Chelsea,
Brentford job might be open for David Moyes.
Sounds
like a perfect natural fit.
Well, let's not get me started on the job that he done at West Ham because I thought he was absolutely brilliant at the time he was there. Anyway, Artem Dovbik's hat-trick in Girona's 7-0 win over Granada on Friday means he's top goal scorer in La Liga. But is it sad ending to your pal Alexander Sorloth?
So a couple of things on this. First and foremost, last day of the season, you see screwy goals totals, screwy
mad
things
games
are going on. Granada have just nosedived at the end of the season. Even Almeria finished above them. Almeria, I said all season long, they're probably the best team in history not to win a game when they had that incredible run with 25 games without a win or whatever it was. I'm happy at least they finished ahead of Granada. Dovbik's had a phenomenal season. Ends on 24 goals. But going into the final day, Villarreal away to Osasuna, I thought, all right, silly season, nothing to play for. The only living Sorloth in captivity is going to go, and he's going to get the 2 goals, and he's going to be Pichichi, and we're going to love it. 2 Norwegian top scorers in the Big Five leagues.
would have been all
How
over
about
it.
That? Exactly. Instead, he has a chance on goal. Something pulls out, looked muscular, comes off after 50 minutes. It was it's a heartbreak. Would it be more of a heartbreak if then it meant he would miss the Euros for Norway? But hey, look, Norway aren't at the Euros, despite Sorloth, Holland, and Martin Odegaard. But we've been through that. So I feel bad for him. I want him to repeat this. I want to see if this can't just be a one-off. And all 23 goals from open play, by the way. That is a ton of goals on a team, as we've said before, that underachieved this season, a team that had 3 different managers, and yet he just plowed through it and scored a lot of goals. Napoli finished the season in the most depressing way, a scoreless draw against Lecce. But Don, I guess the good news is that Antonio Conte is reportedly on his way to liven things up. Do you like this?
Good news. Is it? Fireworks Great for us.
Well, he's going to go and kick some rear ends.
And he's going to blame De Laurentiis. He's going to say, why are you not giving me any money? Why have you invested? I need more money. I need another 200 million. Please give me more money. De Laurentiis is going to say, start coaching these players into being good again. Yeah, but I need more money. Fireworks, it tells me, Gab.
Yeah, the only way this works is if Conte had a come to Jesus moment and De Laurentiis tells him and sold him on the idea that, hey, Antonio, you know what really impressed me about you? Yeah, it's not just the titles you won at Chelsea, at Inter, at Juve. It was when you were the Italy coach at Euro 2016, and Italy had probably the least talented international squad that they've had in history. And you took that midfield where everybody was injured and kind of rubbish and stuff, and you made it work because you were a genius and you convinced ordinary players that they were good players and it could work. And, you know, we went out on penalties against Germany and the stupid Zaza run up. But look, Zaza's playing for Italy. Can you imagine that? This is what you need to do, right? So Conte says, yeah, I'll do that.
So, Mr. Laurent, are we keeping Osimhen? No, we're selling him.
Oh, that's fine. I'll make it work.
What
with
about
somebody else.
Kvaratskhelia? No, we're going to sell him as well.
That's okay. I have Captain Jack. I've got Di Lorenzo. I will work.
Well, you will work for about 7-8 million a year.
Yeah.
Will it work?
That's the thing. It's also like now they're arguing about money and stuff. I would also say, if I were Di Lorenzo, I would say, hey, Conte, you want a job? You want to play in front of 60,000 people? Like, your stock is low. Look around you. Look around you at the other clubs. Who are they hiring? Manchester United, big club. Are they linked to you? No, they're not. They're linked to Thomas Frank.
Could you went to Milan?
I mean, I would never have him because he costs too much money. He doesn't fit the plan. Clubs are now either looking for value or they're rolling the dice with younger kids. Was he ever linked to the Bayern job at any point? No. Where does he think he's going to go? Juve is obviously not on the table, right? Mm-hmm. Where do you think? Real Madrid, you know, you had the shot, you turned them down. That door's never opening again.
Who's got a better chance of finishing top 4 next season? Bologna? Napoli?
It depends. So we don't know who the Bologna manager is.
No, I'm thinking if Conte, what I'm thinking from Conte's point of view.
I think Conte will get back.
Have you had a thought Bologna, Napoli?
I mean, I would assume Napoli if Conte goes there because he's still a good coach and has a good impact. But you have to be super clear. I hope this does not end up in tears.
Me too.
And
I've got a feeling it will.
There's a risk for that, given De Laurentiis' personality.
Yeah.
You're up.
Yeah. Madrid win 2-0 against Sociedad, Gab. I bet you tell me that they were disappointed in both clubs' campaign this season.
I am. I really, really am. You know, I was watching this, and at the end, I was watching this on Liga TV, and afterwards they're like, oh, well, you know, good season for both, because Atletico are back in the Champions League, and Real Sociedad are back in the Europa League. And I'm like, no, garbage from both. First of all, if you're Atletico Madrid, any season you don't finish top 3 has to be viewed as a failure. Doesn't mean you get rid of Diego Simeone.
Yeah.
But that is really, really disappointing because
100%.
The gap in budget between Atletico Madrid and whoever number 4 is absolutely enormous.
And you're meant to shorten the distance between yourself
and the top
Barca,
2. Yeah.
Barca
or at least don't let Girona pass you. And they finished way behind, incidentally. So there's that. And look, Acholo's got to work. I think we're going to see a bunch of new faces and whatever. But yeah, it's got to be disappointing. They didn't play good football. This Cholismo 2.0. We never saw that. Or we saw it only in fits and starts. They never got comfortable with it. Morata fell off a cliff in the second half of the season. But also, there were times, and look, Jules and I weren't just being like, oh, look, hipsters. There was times early in the season where I played some of the best football in Europe. It was so wonderful to watch. But then they just never kick on. They just stay where they are. Part of it, people point fingers at their strikers. You have big name strikers. You have Umar Sadiq. You've got Andre Silva, Geraldo Becker coming in. Those 3 center forwards between them. Do you know how many goals they scored this season? How many goals? 8.
Oh my days.
So there's so much talent there. We all talk about how wonderful Imanol is. He's got to figure out how can I get some more consistency into this team to really do things, because there's a base there. But yeah, 6th place, I'm disappointed. Wow. Philippe Coutinho is back at Aston Villa from his loan spell at Al Duhail in Qatar. Don, reportedly, they'll try to work out a deal to get him another loan move. There's been mention of Vasco da Gama, of course, owned by your friends at 777. But the reality is they're on the hook for another 2 years of big wages at Villa. Should Emery even try?
yes and no, because yes, the reason is he's still a brilliant player technically, but I think the Premier League's moved on and it's too fast for him now. So the answer to that is no. So there's the contradiction. So I think if you're Unai Emery, you try to move him on. Villa will probably have to do a deal with someone where you send him on loan and pay a certain percentage of his wages.
Yeah,
it's the
very
only
high
way.
percentage of his wages.
Exactly, it's probably the only way. And I think you listen to the player. You ask the player if you see that he's got fight in his eyes and you think that he's going to have a strong pre-season and get fitter and get stronger and stay away from injuries, then you might. But I think the way Unai Emery coaches these individuals and coaches them into be more of a team ethic than a star free man number 10 where you can carry an individual. The Premier League's not really meant to sort of carry individuals anymore, of that sort of number 10 where you can carry one player and the rest of the team will get you out of it. So I think if you're Unai Emery, I think you try and you probably move on. I think it'll be difficult because you said the wages that he's on is going to be huge, so they're going to have to suffer. 22. Gab, it hasn't been the greatest of seasons for Porto and Sergio Conceição, but at least they finished with a trophy and denying Sport in the double.
Yeah, and it's funny because, I think ultimately what happens at the very end of the season colors the season, right? So Ruben Amorim and Sporting won the league, 90 points, great feat. And then they're playing Porto, who are third. They finished a bazillion points behind them. And I think in some ways, Sporting will feel that they threw this game away because they took the lead with Jeremiah Saint-Just, good header. Porto equalized, and then still in the first half, Saint-Just, last man on Galeno, red card. You can't do that. No. You can't put yourself in that position. Chances on both sides, and then Sporting playing with their third keeper is 19 years old, Diogo Pinto, of course, Adan injured, and his backup, Franco Israel, who, by the way, Franco Israel, on loan from Juventus, not Israeli, actually Uruguayan, as the name suggests. Anyway, both these guys are out. The kid makes a mistake. I think it's a foul at the end. I think on Galeno, if I remember correctly. Up steps the Inter-bound Mehdi Taremi, buries the penalty in extra time, and they lose 2-1. And I'm just thinking to Ruben Amorim, if we go back a month, everything's flying for him on his way to double. Great coach.
Flying literally into London.
He's being linked to Liverpool, but then he does that weird thing where he meets with West Ham.
I think I'm going to go to Liverpool. I'll just stop off in London first to meet West Ham.
It is kind of odd, though.
Weird.
What's odd now is all these teams. When I battled the Fantastic Four who are linked with United and the Fantastic Four who are linked with Chelsea, is there any mention at all of Ruben Amorim?
Yeah, weird. It's weird. Is that because he went back with his tail between his legs? Had to apologise?
I don't know. He's had a good season. Maybe people are looking at this and saying, not the right fit for us. I don't know. It's interesting how quickly people fall in and out of favor with football clubs. Shout out to Andre Villas-Boas, by the way, his first trophy as president of Porto. Napoli and Juventus are among clubs lobbying to reduce Serie A from 20 to 18 clubs. Don, you love your Serie A.
Yeah.
Do you like this? Do you want to see less of Serie A?
No, I want to see more of Serie A.
So let's expand it to 30 teams.
Yeah, let's have a Super League in Italian football. I don't know is the answer, Gab. I don't know. It might shorten down a couple of games. It might give the players a little bit more rest or something. I'm trying to think outside the box why you'd want it to go to 18. I'm leaning towards not being a fan. I like it 20 teams. I like that number. I like the amount of games that I see, commentate on, and as a fan, try and see as much as possible. But you've been around Italian football for a lot longer than I have.
This debate's been going on for a long time. Personally, I think that every top league should have 18 clubs, and it includes the Premier League and La Liga. It's not going to happen because, as you like to say in this country, turkeys don't vote for Christmas, and that's because you eat turkey at Christmas.
Enlighten me, what would be the benefit apart from losing a couple of games?
So I think the benefit would be you would have more meaningful games. Because you wouldn't have those teams that kind of like sail through mid-table late in the season. The benefit from the perspective of Napoli and Juventus is that obviously you're splitting up the TV pie,
right?
18 ways rather than 20 ways.
Right.
Now, obviously, you've got less inventory because it's 4 less games per team. But a lot of those games that you'd be missing would be midweek rounds, which are generally less lucrative. The other benefit would be less football. For the players, and we talk about players being overextended.
And then they'll just fly to Australia, like West Ham and Newcastle.
Flip
Newcastle
side
have
of
just
that,
done. Yeah,
you
Newcastle
know, they'll
and,
find
Tottenham.
friendlies for people to play in,
Yeah.
and the ever-expanding Champions League and so on. I just think the Bundesliga have it right. I look at that. That's an even bigger country, you know, than Spain, Italy, or England. They have 85 million people. They've got 18 clubs. The fans are really, really happy there, and they're happy in the second division. Second division will obviously get stronger, losing 2 clubs. And in Italy as well, what we've seen in recent years is, but I think you could say make sure, it's not just Italy, you could say here too.
Would that be a domino effect? So 18 in Serie A, 18 Serie B?
No. It would just be the top flights.
Right.
Yeah, I presume would stay. I haven't fully thought that through. But what's interesting is, and I think what annoys them a little bit is, we see very small teams like Empoli, like Frosinone in Serie A in the same way.
Oh, what about their luck last night going down?
I know, it was heartbreaker. But the same way in this country, right? You see Burnley in Serie A, you see Brentford in Serie A, you see Bournemouth, sorry, not in Serie A, in the Premier League. You see Bournemouth in the Premier League. And we want Bournemouth in the Premier League because they have a little teeny tiny stadium, right? They don't have many fans. They're not a big television draw. No, but like from a purely business perspective, right? You want Leeds, you want Southampton, you want, you know, Sheffield Wednesday, should they ever get good again.
Yeah, but that's why we love it. That's why we love the jeopardy of whatever league is. The
you
promotion,
love the jeopardy. These guys love balancing the books. No, but that mindset is out there. That mindset's affected the Premier League as well. I mean, I go back. People talk about all the money in the Premier League. Yeah, but 16 of 20 teams lose money every year in the Premier League, right? So, from a business perspective, I think this is why they want to cut it down.